What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, we're doing the first official 2023 NASCAR silly season update. We're going through everything that's happened so far in the silly season so far throughout 2023 and preview some upcoming things that could happen in the silly season later down the road. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. In the beginning of January, Kevin Hart would officially announce he'd be retiring from NASCAR at the end of the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. After 23 successful years in the NASCAR Cup Series and win the championship in 2014, he's earned a retirement. It was also announced during the clash that Kevin Hart would join the Fox Sports booth in the 2024 season after doing a really good job commentating Xfinity Series and Truck Series races over the years. He will be really, really good in that. Not too much later, about a week or two later, it will be announced that Kyle Larson will officially run the 2024 Indianapolis 500, driving for McLaughlin in a car that has Hendrick support. Kyle Larson has been rumored to run the Indy 500 for many, many years, and now he'll get an opportunity to do that. He's been getting his seat fitted recently. He will be at the 2023 Indy 500 to wave the green flag, and will have other festivities around the Indy 500. Then during the Fox broadcast kind of stuff, as they're getting previewed for Fox for 2023, Denny Hamill says he felt confident he'll be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2024. Even though Denny Hamill's had an up and down start 2023, I think that there's a really strong chance and a really strong possibility that Denny Hamill will return to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2024, but it's all going to depend on sponsorship and funding. A little bit later down the road, Eragon rolled basically, well, he has a multi-year deal with Stewart-Haas Racing. Eragon rolled basically confirmed his future is right now is uncertain past 2023. And what his results currently at the moment through 2023, there is a chance and a possibility that Eragon roll could retire at the end of the 2023 season. Then at the Phoenix test, for the next-gen test to try to get lower downforce and basically a 2-inch spoiler, Casey Mears was spotted at that test talking to Jimmy Johnson. And Casey Mears confirmed to the media that he wants to return to NASCAR, run a select number of races, around 6 or 7 races, in 2023 or maybe even 2024 as well. So there is a potential possibility that Casey Mears could make a return to NASCAR down the road. And then about a week or two later, we have another major silly season bomb that basically dropped, as it would be announced that Chase Briscoe had signed a multi-year deal with Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, we don't know exactly how long the deal is, but it's basically a long-term deal, so probably around a 4 to 5 year deal for Chase Briscoe. With how successful he was in 2022, it's not a shock or surprise, and he's expected to be the leader long-term at Stewart-Haas Racing. And then during Daytona Speed Week, so right before Daytona, we had a bunch of silly season signings. First, Daniel Suarez signed a multi-year contract with Trackhouse Racing. While the details are not official, it is expected that Daniel Suarez has a contract right now through the 2025 season. Good sponsorship and good funding really helps out, and good performance on the racetrack helps on that as well. On the same day of the Daniel Suarez signing, it will be announced that Alex Bowman has signed a multi-year contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports through the 2026 season. In addition, Ally has signed their extension with Hendrick Motorsports through 2028. With how good Alex Bowman has been at Hendrick Motorsports, it was not a shock or a surprise that he was going to be re-signing with Hendrick Motorsports and will be at Hendrick Motorsports for the long term. And then next day, after a lot of questions had surfaced about Ross Chastain's feature, Trackhouse Racing would officially confirm the day after Daniel Suarez signing that he also signed a multi-year contract with Trackhouse Racing. Now, we don't know how long his contract is, but I believe Ty Norris said he wants to keep Ross Chastain there, but basically his beard is gray. So basically, essentially, when Ross Chastain ends up being pretty much old and near the end of his career. So he's pretty much going to finish his career with Trackhouse Racing. After all those signings, we had a little bit of speculation around 2311 Racing. And 2311 Racing has said publicly that they are planning to have expansion in the long term around 2024 and 2025. Obviously, if they're going to have a third car on a part-time basis in 2023, they ran that, of course, with Travis Strana in the Daytona 500 and potentially with Kurt Busch as well. And I think eventually they want to have a third full-time driver like a Sammy Smith come into play, and maybe some drivers like a John Nemechek from the Toyota stable could have a potential shot and possibly to drive with 2311 Racing when they do decide to have a third full-time car. And then it'll be a little quiet for a couple weeks. And then Ford's executive Mark Rushbrook went on Series 7 NASCAR radio And he says that Ford will discuss plans for Hailie Deegan for 2024. Not sure what the plans are, whether it'll be returning to Truck Series or going to Xfinity, but I would imagine that Ford will be looking to try to move her up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the 2024 season, especially with the sponsorship and funding. Something crazy that could end up happening is she could go cup racing, but I imagine that the goal for Ford is to try to move her up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the 2024 season. That's definitely possible, and it could end up happening. Over throughout the course of the season, there's been a lot of talk and rumors around Kurt Busch. And Kurt Busch has publicly said that he's currently working on returning to NASCAR. And he did confirm a few weeks into the season that 2311, like I mentioned, does have a third car that is available when Kurt Busch does make a return. He seems to be getting a little bit closer, and it's been much, much closer than recently when we've last heard. He's still trying to get back into a Cup Series car. And he says he wants to return to tracks like Darlington for the Southern 500, tracks like Watkins Glen where he has never run. He wants to get back to the NASCAR Cup Series as soon as possible and race, which I miss seeing Kurt Busch behind the wheel. I think all of us would agree. Kurt Busch, of course, has got inducted to top 75 greatest drivers. I think a lot of us do miss Kurt Busch being behind the wheel of a Cup Series car. So hopefully we get to see Kurt Busch back behind the wheel of the Cup Series car in the foreseeable future. But nonetheless, I hope he gets to come back soon. Around the time of the Kurt Busch stuff, another team started talking about potentially jumping up to the Cup Series. And we've talked about this team quite a bit on this channel, and that is Junior Motorsports. As Junior Motorsports could potentially jump up to the Cup Series in the 2024 season. However, something that's holding Junior Motorsports back from making the jump up to the NASCAR Cup Series right now is a charter. Charters are right now $30 million currently at the moment, and we're not sure if there are going to be more charters coming down the road. NASCAR Executive President Steve Phelps has publicly said that they would love to add more charters in the foreseeable future, so this can help out Junior Motorsports. Maybe they try to acquire a charter from Spire Motorsports, and we know that the 77 car has been struggling, and they do have a partnership with the 77 car in the Xfinity Series going into this year, so if Carson Hosbar will make some starts. It's going to be very interesting to see what Junior Motorsports decide to do, but nonetheless, they really do want to go cup race in the future. Will it be 2024? We'll have to wait and see. Another team that's been looking at indications of maybe not being rolling out a potential return to NASCAR is Chip Ganassi Racing, as they said that they're not ruling out a return to NASCAR. Now, they basically said it could be 2024 or 2025 on the Dale Jr. Down. Chip Ganassi talked about that. He says it's a little bit less likely, but there still is a chance that in the long-term future, we could see Chip Ganassi make a return to NASCAR. Especially rumors of a new manufacturer coming into play. It would not surprise or shock me, especially if Honda or another company decides to come into play. Maybe Chip Ganassi Racing decides to go ahead and jump into NASCAR once again. I think it'd be really awesome if they did decide to make the jump. On social media a few weeks ago, Scott McLaughlin was being asked questions, and someone asked, "Are you interested in racing in NASCAR?" Well, Scott McLaughlin responded, and he said yes, he is interested in racing in NASCAR. Now, Scott McLaughlin comes to the V8 Supercar Series, and we know that Team Penske could have a third car long-term. They ran out with Austin Cindric in 2021, or the fourth car, I should say. So maybe Scott McLaughlin does get an opportunity long-term and a shot to run with Team Penske in the NASCAR Cup Series, or maybe even in the Xfinity Series. I would love to see Scott McLaughlin run. He's one of the best drivers in racing right now, and it would be really cool to have him race in NASCAR. Another driver that comes from the open wheel world is Jensen Button. And Jensen Button, of course, made his NASCAR Cup Series debut at Circuit Americas for Rick Ware Racing, and is also going to run a few other races down the road at the Indianapolis Road Course, and also is going to run at Chicago Street Course Race. Well, Jensen Button said he had a lot of fun racing, that he's even considering maybe eventually long-term going full-time in NASCAR. Now, he'd probably love to go full-time in the Cup Series, but I think if he wanted to start out, maybe he goes to the NASCAR Xfinity Series on a full-time basis, but he's definitely considering a full-time run in NASCAR. About a week or two ago, we had another driver that basically has not been in NASCAR for a very, very long time come out of the spotlight and show up in the spotlight once again, and that is Carl Edwards. Carl Edwards was inducted into the top 75 greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, and he said to the media that he plans to visit the Trackhouse Racing Shop. Now, he did indicate that he's not returning. But something very interesting to know, kind of odd. Why would Carl Edwards visit the trackhouse shop and not get back behind the wheel of a race car? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We also know that Carl Edwards is rumored to maybe going back to 2311 racing and driving that car for Travis Strong was found out to be there. So it's potentially possible Carl Edwards could return. It's not likely, but anything's possible and anything could happen. And then very recently, we had a driver from the NASCAR Xfinity Series that might be the driver who could be replacing Kevin Harvick in 2024, and that is Josh Berry. And very recently, Adam Stern just tweeted out that Josh Berry is close to signing with KHI Management. So it sounds like Josh Berry is a favorite right now to replace Kevin Harvick heading into the 2024 season. This driver has been substituting for Alex Bowman and, of course, Chase Elliott earlier in the year. And at Hendrick Motorsports has generally been running really, really good and really, really well. I think Josh Berry definitely fits the cars and fits the possibilities of driving for the team. It sounds like the announcement could be coming around the Coca-Cola 600 weekend, which would be a really, really good time to get that announcement out of the way. And he'd be a great driver to bring on to Stewart-Haas Racing. It sounds like there's a chance of that happening. One driver, though, that has a very similar sponsor to Josh Berry, Bass Pro Shops, is Martin Truex Jr. And after Martin Truex Jr. picked up his first win in a year and a half since Richmond in 2021 in the fall, Martin Truex Jr. basically is still kind of unsure on 2024. And his decision may not even come until September, so 4 months down the road. Now, if Martin Truex Jr. does continue to win races, he could return in the 2024 season, but he also could retire at the end of 2023. But I think that Joe Gibbs Racing really wants to keep around. Joe Gibbs has publicly said that he would love to keep Martin Truex Jr. at Joe Gibbs Racing next season. I think MTJ's got a lot of talent and knows how to get it done behind the wheel and would still be extremely successful. And very recently, we had a massive, massive silly season bombshell that came out recently, and that is around Legacy Motor Club. As Legacy Motor Club probably dropped the biggest bombshell so far this season. They are going to be switching manufacturers from Chevrolet to Toyota in the 2024 season. Now, Eric Jones and Noah Gragson, who were part of the Toyota development program many, many years ago, back in 2000, like Noah Gragson was there from 2016 to 2018, and Eric Jones was there from about 2014, 2013, basically a long time, up until the end of the 2020 season when he's let go from Joe Gibbs Racing. They returned to Toyota. This is a really big move for Legacy Motor Club. Of course, they got pit crews from Joe Gibbs Racing. I think it makes a lot of sense now why they got pit crews from Joe Gibbs Racing. Now we know why they got those pit crews. I think this is a very good move for Legacy Motor Club heading into the 2024 season, because I think they're going to have a really good chance to be a lot more competitive. Yes, they're still going to be the third Toyota team, but they're going to be a better position at Toyota than they were at with Chevrolet. This is a very strong move, I believe, for Legacy Motor Club. Then very recently, we jump away from that, we got to talk about Lewis Hamilton. Because, of course, this weekend is the Miami Grand Prix, and Lewis Hamilton, while also being interested in racing IndyCar, Lewis Hamilton is also interested in racing in NASCAR as well, and has publicly said he'd like to try to race in NASCAR. Now, Lewis Hamilton obviously has driven a NASCAR Cup Series car before, but it has not been in a very long time. The last time he drove in a car was in the Gen 5 car in a driver swap with Tony Stewart at Watkins Glen in 2011. I don't know how Lewis Hamilton competitive he would be, but I think it'd be really fun nonetheless have a driver like Lewis Hamilton come out and race in NASCAR. I think it'd be pretty competitive. Well, not too competitive, but depending on what team he goes for, I think it'd be really fun to have him back. And the next thing we're talking about is Ryan Truex. Ryan Truex picked up his first career top-tier Tour Series win a week ago at Dover, and he's currently working on a full-time deal with Joe Gibbs Racing for the Xfinity Series heading into the 2024 season. I think a lot of people would agree with this move. He's got a lot of talent. He's done a really good job with Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity. You look at the finishes he's had this year. Second place at Phoenix. Third place, of course, a week later at Atlanta. And has had a lot of success with Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity. It makes a lot of sense if he does end up going full-time. And the final silly season move that's kind of happened today is Ryan Newman. As Ryan Newman is officially making his return to NASCAR after being gone since 2021. Ryan Newman will run for Rickler Racing for 5 races in the 2023 season, including next weekend at Darlington and also the All-Star Race. Ryan Newman back in the NASCAR Cup Series is absolutely incredible, and I think a big pickup for Rick Ware Racing as well. You got someone who has a lot of veteran presence, one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, in my opinion, and one of the best drivers in the sport. So I think it's really good to see him back, and we'll talk more about it later this week, but really excited to see that Ryan Newman is officially coming back to NASCAR. And that's all the things that have been confirmed. There's some other silly season news that's kind of behind the scenes that's going on. First, John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek could potentially jump up to the Cup Series in the 2023 season. And it's long been known if Truex Jr. decides to retire or if Denny Hamill moves on from Joe Gibbs Racing. Though I don't think that is going to happen where Denny Hamill leaves Joe Gibbs Racing, John Hunter Nemechek could make the jump up the Cup next year in 2024. Zane Smith. Zane Smith, potentially, he could jump up to the Cup Series in 2024 on a full-time basis. He has been making select starts in the NASCAR Cup Series this season, and I think he's had decent runs, but not fantastic runs. But he's going for a Truck Series championship currently at the moment. And finally, Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen, I think, is really looking for a better ride next year. Because Todd Gillen's been outperforming front row motorsports cars and has been generally doing a really good job. It's going to be interesting to see what 4 teams, maybe RFK tries to pick him up or another team tries to pick him up. It's going to be very interesting to see, nonetheless, what happens there when it comes to Todd Gillen. So, that is going to be the first official silly season update and silly season checkpoint. One thing, guys, for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel. Notifications on so if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links go to below over that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about today's silly season update? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later tonight on the channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Truck Series race review from Kansas Speedway. Then tomorrow on the channel, we have the NASCAR Cup Series race review from Kansas Speedway. Then Monday through Friday, we'll have a lot of NASCAR videos on the channel, including the throwback paint scheme list we're going to be looking at. And we've got a lot of other content on this way as well. And there'll probably be more silly season updates as we go throughout the season. Likely the next silly season update is going to come a few months down the road. Probably sometime in July when we get a little bit down the road. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.